Hello, this is Arcades, and welcome to another how-to episode here on Stormworks Build and Rescue. And yeah, so I said I did a video on making a basic ECU, and I said if it did well enough, I would expand on it. And well, for me, it did well, I should say. And so yeah, we're gonna expand on it. So we're going to touch on some small add-ons that you can add to the ECU to give different functions, because even though this here works, it does require a little bit of conscious knowledge of what state it's in. So we're going to actually get it to work on its own, hopefully, to where you don't have to be as interactive with it or maintain what it is. So you'll see what I mean if you're not understanding. So, alright. So, remember, hope you like what you watch. Hope you enjoy what you saw. If you do, remember to like, subscribe, leave a comment, tell me what you think. Helps out the channel immensely. And, yeah, let's get into this. Okay, so, while this does work, it is very basic, as was the intention for all these things. Now, however, there is a small problem with this. See, the thing is that when it goes to shut off, say, something causes the engine to shut down, say like, these diesel engines, and the, whoops, say we bring this down to 0, you'll see, they'll keep running, because they're still on. But we want them to maintain a certain RPS. We also want them to restart, say, if they go below a certain RPS. And all that fun junk. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to, well, we're going to forego the logic blocks. We're going to throw this into a microcontroller and start adding some of the other features to help maintain the condition of the engine so it runs properly. So, let's get into the workbench. Okay, so here we are. We're in a microcontroller build because we're going to turn this into a microcontroller. Because basically I showed you that's great for making a quick build, for testing out an engine. If you're not looking for a lot of special features in it, that works great. But when you start wanting to add features and stuff like this, it's best to go ahead and put it in a microcontroller. You could take what I built, what I showed in the last one, and you can put that in a microcontroller. Well, I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Since now with everything we're going to build, it's going to be a much smaller and nicer package. So we're going to go ahead and set that thing up in this microcontroller. And just to start out with, I'm going to put it as my ECU. That's all I'm going to call it right now. Yeah, so now we're going to come over here to the logic here. Okay, so I went ahead and got all the nodes set up here. And what we have here is we have an RPS from the engine. It's where your engine's RPS will go into, obviously. We have the two throttles. We have an engine throttle primary. This is the one that will go to your fuel throttle on your mod engine and to the throttle of the engines. This is the one you would use for that. Now, if you're doing mod engines, this one will go to the air throttle, and we will take care of that in there. I'm kind of setting this up to be an all-in-one so that you can use it on either or. I have my own custom ECUs, and I have one for mod engines and one for just the regular prefab engines because, you don't need the second air throttle. The second throttle output for that, but we're doing that here. I have an input for the target RPS from the throttle. We have an activate input. We have an accessories output activation, and then I have the starter. Now the accessories is stuff like turning on for your thing, like say pumps and all that. We might need a secondary accessories output. I'll add that in if needed. But basically you want the stuff that the accessories would be the stuff that we want to stay on, like pumps, say like for your cooling system or such. I'm not going to be worrying about cooling system on here, but I will be putting one on as an example. You still need to set up your own cooling, however you want, what you need, but at least I'll show you how you can at least include their activation in as a part of this ECU, including any other fun stuff that you want to add to the engine. At least this will show you how you can activate it and possibly expand on it if need be. Okay, now let's get into the actual logic. Okay, so we're in here. I already split apart all the nodes that we added here. And you see we have all the throttles and the outputs on this side and all the inputs on this side. Now we're going to go ahead and set this up. We're going to take the info, we're going to set up the ECU that we just built, the basic one, but we're going to set up in here. And the first thing we're going to look for is a PID. Now there's two PIDs like I described in the last video. There's the basic one and we have the advanced one. Now the basic one is just like the one out there. You would take this and you would put in the values in these things and it's set. Can choose to do that if you want. Not a problem with it at all. Now, however, what I like to do, since I want to be able to use this on different engines for my own, I like to use the advanced one. And then we're going to come down here and we're going to take property numbers like this, and we're going to connect them to each of these. So we're going to have a property number to the proportional, to the integral, and a derivative. Okay, so I went ahead. I've got three property numbers here. One is named P, one is named I, and one is named D. And they will coincide with each of these. So P to the proportional, I to the integral, and D to the derivative. And that's how I'm going to set those. Now the reason why you would use the properties is what they do is they allow you to have these right here when you go to click on your on your microcontroller ECU. As you can see, now I can change these from here. I don't have to go inside the microcontroller, which is what the other one would have you do. So we now have this. Okay, so that's now controlling our PID numbers. That's fine. Now, we want to attach our other things. So we got our target RPS, which goes to set point. We got our RPS in, which goes to our process variable. And the activate goes to the activate. Okay, so we're going to grab a push to toggle. I'm just going to push it right there for now. Then we're going to grab the activate. We'll put it to the push to toggle. That's like our push button out on the whatever you choose to use. In this case, I'm planning for a push button, so this is where this will come from. We'll take the push to toggle, put it into the activate, and then we will put it onto the accessories, the accessory output. And then, of course, we'll take the activate and put it on the starter. Then we will grab a function block. I'm going to put that right there. We're going to move some of this stuff over. We'll put that into the air throttle, and just like on the last video with the function block there, we're just going to put x times 2. That's all we need to do. Put that to there, and take that to the engine output, and there we go. That is the basic ECU that we just made in the last video. All right? That will perform exactly the same, because it's all the same logic. But you notice this is turning out to be a bigger controller of a 3x3 or a 2x4, however you decide you want to orient it, versus the 2 logic blocks, which are 2x3. So not really saving a lot of room because you have all those inputs and such and outputs. But now, the thing that makes doing this more advantage is now we want to do all these special features. Okay, so now we want to add it to where if the engine gets under a certain RPS, it's going to try to restart itself. So in case, something happens and it kills the RPS. Generally, 5 RPS is when an engine dies. Below then, it's considered, like it's not working. And generally needs a boost to get back running. Well, so what we're going to do is I went ahead and grabbed a property number and we're putting it down here. I named it minimum RPS, min RPS, and I put the value for 3. I think that's actually pretty good in case, something's happening, it just goes down and you don't want it to waste electricity, waste your power. But it's enough that it still says, So what we're going to do is we're going to take that, and then we're going to also grab a less than block. And we're going to take this and put it into B. Then we're going to grab the RPS, put that into A. Now, if we put this straight into the starter, it will start it when you activate it because technically it's under. But however, if something, say you bring the RPS down low because you want it to idle or something like that, and something causes it to go down too low, then it'll constantly try to start itself. Or say you just turn it off. Say you turn the systems off and the engine starts shutting off. Well, guess what? It's going to try to start itself. So we need some way to say, as a check, to say, hey, do I actually need to be running right now? Well, one way we can do that is we're going to grab an AND block. And what we're going to do is bring the push to toggle to the AND, and then we're going to bring this less than to the AND. We'll bring both of those and take it to the starter. So what this is that when you hit that push to toggle, when you hit the activate, and it turns on that push to toggle, then triggers for this half of it. So when it looks at this and says, hey, RPS is too low, well, you're supposed to be on, so it hits the starter and turns it on. So that way you only actually need to worry about the activations side of the stuff. And right here, you have a system that now will auto restart. And on top of using that property number, you can now set your minimum RPS here within these values. So that, again, you don't have to go digging all the way in the microcontroller. Now, also as something I suggest, because I mentioned it in the previous video, the PID here does not have the max value that the PID block, logic block has. And to simulate that, you want to use a clamp. Now the thing is the clamp only sets between 2 values and it minimizes at 0 and 1, or it defaults to 0 and 1, whereas the PID block would actually be -1 and 1. We're going to go ahead and leave it to 0 and 1, because that means there's less travel that it will do between 0 and 1, and the engine will minimize between the 2 values, which actually makes the PID more efficient, because it's not having to deal with a number that's not present in the RPS. So we're going to take this and we're going to go ahead and add that to there. So now you have a controller that's stable. You can add a minimum RPS. It will restart itself. Okay, so this is set up to be a push button activate. Now, if you want to use a toggle input, say you want to use the key switch or a toggle button on your seat to turn things on and off, the simplest alteration you can make to this is just to remove the push to toggle from the equation and set the activate straight to the activate on the PID, and then set the activate straight to the AND here for the starter. And don't even bother with the accessories. Like, just take your key and go straight to the accessories and activate it. Now, the disadvantage to doing that versus using this as well is, or you could even just put this straight onto here. You're bypassing the push to toggle if you want to use a toggle switch on the exterior. Like I said, it's perfectly viable. You can do that. I like push button, that's why I designed it. But if you want to replace the push button with a toggle, like I said, the key and a toggle button, whichever you want to do, you would just bypass it here and replace all the places where the push toggle would go. You would just put it straight into there. And that's the easiest modification. I was sitting here actually trying to think of how to make a toggle switch on the microcontroller so you could just, and frankly, it was a complete mess. It was a complete mess because personally, I don't mind doing this. This is like 3 seconds, however long it takes just to click, and there, I've made my adjustment. If you want to make a version of this microcontroller, one that's a toggle input and one that's a push input, they're completely the same. They'll work exactly the same. All you're doing is just trying to decide which type of input you want. And it would take a hell of a lot faster than trying to mess with an entire logic. Because there was like crazy shenanigans I had to do. And I think the only other one possibly was using the Boolean function block, which I'm not too confident with at the moment. So, yeah. So pretty much, this is a microcontroller package in a nutshell. There are other things you can do. You can make other adjustments to this to add other features, but this is basically the microcontroller. It has an auto start and it runs your engine and gives you all the options you need with the basic one with a few extra. All right, let's add a quick engine to this. So give me a second. Okay, so we have ourselves a small engine all set up. I will be turning off the infinite electric. I won't have infinite fuel, and the cooling will be there as well, just so I can show the systems all working and the accessories and all that. So we have electricity, we have pumps, we have a radiator, and we have a generator. So let's see how this goes. Okay, so we have a throttle set for 8. We got our key switch here. This is set up so that I can use a toggle input. So thus this. We've got a battery. As you can see, we got a relay here. This is going to be attached to the accessories along with the radiator and the fluid pump. So when everything turns on, when I turn this on, triggers the relay, all this will get power. And yeah, we'll see it run from there. And there we go. You can see we're running about a little under 5 RPS. System's charged up. Battery's charged, all that's charged. We can increase the RPS. We hit the gearboxes, because I got 2 gearboxes because I'm trying to kill it so you can see the auto start. Yeah, you hear that? That was the auto start trying to get the engine to restart. Okay, so yeah, pretty successful. Okay, so I corrected it, so this is now back to, as I originally showed you, as a push to toggle setup using a push button activate. Okay, so I got it rewired. I got the logic right back up and push button, as you can see. Everything's running, doing its thing. Now, what we're going to do, I'm going to add one more little thing. Now, one of the better things about using a microcontroller, because it can give you a lot better info about what's going on in here. This is completely optional, but it does help when you're trying to diagnose issues. There's a certain item in here called tooltips. And what we're going to do is we're just going to put that one down. And then there's an on-off and a number tooltip. So say that you're near the microcontroller, but you're not near the engine. And you don't want to have to run back to actually find out what's going on with the engine for certain things. You're pulling in numbers right now, right? So how do we know, like, say, what RPS the engine's at? You know the thing's activating, but what is the actual RPS doing? Well, you can actually take these tooltips and say, we'll put this one, like, you know, right here. And then we'll just take this RPS in and we will put that there. And we will just put RPS in. And then we will put this here. And we're going to grab the push to toggle here. And we're just going to say accessory active. Because that's for the push to toggle, and it will say, hey, this is, you know, whatever it is. We'll say that this is on. So that way, you know if the thing is trying to say that it's supposed to be on or not. So we'll just say access active on off. Like that. So this way we can see what's going on in there. So we'll just update this real quick. Now that we're out here, when you go to look at the ECU microcontroller, it will actually tell you what those tooltips are. It will give you that info. So we start that, and you can see the accessories are active. And then you could use tooltips to read back to you what's going on with the engine, what is active, what's not active, and stuff like that. So whenever you see an ECU and you see these listings of stuff on the side, that's what it is. It's the tooltips that you add inside the microcontroller so you can read what's going on. Okay, so say now you actually want to add temperature to it. So we're going to go ahead and come back to here. We're going to come to the logic. We're going to add one more node. We'll come back. We'll come down here because this is where it's at. And we're going to change it to a number. And we'll call it, we'll just call it temperature. I'll just say temp. Now, if you're doing a mod engine, you want to add another one, and you will change this to composite, and you will say mod engine temperature or input. We'll just do that. And we'll put that one right there. We will go back to the logic, and we now have these two new ones in. Right? Now we're going to need a read logic, composite read number, right there. It will default to channel 1, and I believe we need channel 1 for the mod engines. Now, channel 3, sorry. Channel 3 for the temperature from the cylinder head. Now, since you're probably only going to be using this on one engine, we're just going to use a add block here. And we're just going to put this here and that one here. Now, for some reason, you put both engines, if you have a mod engine and a regular engine, and you put them both into here. But if you don't want to do this, now the reason why I'm doing this is because if you don't plug anything here, that'll be 0. So it'll be 0 plus whatever is coming in from here, and vice versa. So this is the equivalent, using an add block in this nature is the equivalent of using an OR block for the Booleans when you're using it in this situation. But if you would rather have a switch, you can use a numerical switch box instead and put this here, put that one there. Actually, let's put that to there, that one to there, and then we will grab a property toggle. Hold on. We're going to grab a property toggle, and we will put this here, put that into there, and simply put, and we'll just say mod engine, question mark. On will be yes, and off will be no. So on is yes. So if it is a mod engine, then it will use the mod engine input versus the temperature. Okay, and then from there, all we got to do is grab a threshold, or no, greater than. We'll just grab a greater than. We will put that down to there, and then we will grab a property block, another numerical property. We will put that into B, and we would call this max temp. And for this, let's say, let's just do 90, okay? That's not high enough to blow up the engines. Actually 95. That's not hot enough to blow up an engine, but if it gets that high, you've got issues. So we'll set it to 95. Then we will grab a numerical switch box, and we're going to put it right here between the target RPS and we will put those RPS into the, actually, no, we'll put it into the off value. We will take that and put that in to the set point. Grab the greater than and put that onto the switch box's switch signal. And then we're going to get a constant number. Or no, not a constant number. Sorry, we're going to grab another property toggle, or a property number. We will put this here, and you will put it right there in there. And then this will be, we'll say, we will call this engine cooldown RPS. And then we will set this to say 5. So it brings it down really low. Let's go 6. We'll go 5. We'll go 5 RPS. So if the engine overheats, say it gets over to 90 degrees, it will trigger this. It will automatically set the engine to 5 RPS so it can start cooling. Let's update it. Okay, so it's all updated. I broke the coolant line, so the coolant now won't work, and okay, so I got the engine running, and we're going to watch it get up to temperature. Keep an eye on that RPS, because when it hits 95, it should drop. Drop the RPS, that is. And there you go, see? Well, as you can see, it's now pulsing because it drops down, it gets under 95, and then it starts back up. So we actually want to give that some time to cool down. So what we can do is add a capacitor. Put that to there, and then we'll set the capacitor for the discharge time for 10 seconds. Okay. Alright, so you see we're at 90. And boom. Goes down. Goes right back up. And you saw it dropped a number of degrees. So, yes, you can use that as a method for saying, hey, you might want to watch out for this. And it helps keeps the engine cool, keeps it from blowing up. So that, hey, maybe I should bring this down a little bit. Let's bring it down to 10 RPS. And you can see it's now cooling down because I lowered the RPS. So that way you have yourself a little protection. And just like the others, you can add a tooltip for this. So we can, just add another on-off tooltip. We will put this here, and then you can name this actual temp protection active. And we'll say active and off. And then you just take the output from this, put that into there. And now when you look at the ECU, you will see whether it's on or off or not. And then we could also take, where's it at? Grab another numerical tooltip, number tooltip, I should say, and say we can put that right here. We'll just call it temp. Put that right there. You can see temp protection, the actual temperature. Turn it on. And we're about to hit it again, and active. Okay, so I have myself a mod engine set up right here. And the thing is I decided to go ahead and add the belt items and the clutch here. Now, there's multiple ways you can handle it. I suggest still using the regular parts instead of the belt clutches, but in case you wanted to use them and you want them to get activated as soon as you start the engine, there is a way to do this. Now, personally, when it comes to the regular clutch, to the engine clutch, I just like setting that as 1 and then using a different clutch. But I also like using the engine clutch to make it so you don't put a lot of pressure on the engine and you can start it and then release the clutch afterwards. But most people probably don't and just use the regular clutch. But if you do, you do. You don't, you don't. That's up to you how you want to use that clutch. But if you want to put it, you want to be a part of the startup procedure to here, I would suggest taking, I would take first a switch box. Actually, no, first thing we got to do, we got to make this a little bit bigger to handle the output. So we're going to put that there. We'll come to the logic, add one more node, and we're just going to make this a number, make it an output, and we will make it mod clutches. That's what we call it. Now you can make an output for each different clutch, or you can make them all in one like I'm about to do. That's up to you. You can adjust this as you needed. The same principle will the principle will be the same for each output. It just depends how many outputs you want. But as I said, I'm doing an all-in-one, so we're just going to put them all in one. So we're just going to take the mod clutch, we'll put it right here, right next to the switch box. Take the output, we'll put that there. And then we will get a constant number. And we'll just simply put it right here. We will put this into the off box. Or actually, we will put it onto the on box, is what we'll do. And then we will just take the push to toggle, bring it down to here, and we will make the constant number a 1. Pretty straightforward. Now, if you want to make it to where the engine starts a little easier before they kick in, okay, so instead of using just a straight activation if on here, you could also grab this one and bring it down. This is from our starter setup. And then take the constant number, instead of putting it in the on value, put it in the off value. So it defaults on. So every time the starter switches on, it will make this to a 0 to allow them to start up and do the starter actually running longer to get it up to RPS. This will actually continue to try to start the engine so that when this clicks in, it's the starter's helping keeping it going from the additional load getting put on it. So this is something you can do to help keep it running. I'm going to leave it in here. You don't have to do it. You can do it. Your choice. Okay, so got it all logicked up. And as you can see, we're at 6 RPS. It's running stable. Bring it up that. Now, as you saw, sometimes you need to lower the RPS back down for a mod engine so it can start back up, because sometimes the values are too high for, I don't know, it just won't start. I've had that happen with mod engines. It's a little weird. Doesn't happen with the prefabs, but it does happen with the mod engines. But generally, you just bring it down, let it start, and then you can bring it back up to whatever you need to. So there is a way to work around that. I'm not going to cover that right now because, again, it's always a tuning issue. It's always a tuning issue. It's something you have to... It'd be something better to just cover under mod engines by themselves instead of underneath an ECU. So, but you can technically set it so that it has a minimum RPS during the starting sequence and then goes up from there. And it would just require a switch box. But, again, oh, I feel like a broken record with this tuning for your engine build. Because, like, even doing this, like, this little tutorial here, just trying to work with this mod engine, I'm constantly tuning the ECU to get this to work. It's annoying. But, you know, I just can't help but, you know. Okay, so, yeah, that's where I'm going to leave it off today. I think that's enough, you know, little extra features added to worthy the space of a ECU box. Yeah, so, showed you how to put it all in the microcontroller, showed you how to add an auto starter to keep it running, and even a little bit of temperature protection with the RPS. So, yeah. How to add your accessories, all that fun junk, and how to even set up between a push and a toggle system. So, yeah. So, hope you had a good time. Hope you enjoyed your watch. Hope this helped you out immensely. If it did, you know the deal, you know the spiel. This is Arcades, signing out. Have yourself a good day. And I will be putting this on the workshop hopefully around the same time the video comes out. So, have yourself a good day.